House. Thank you.
Let's turn now to some fascinating new research into our nation's history. A new book out today reveals the extent of organised resistance and sophisticated war strategies of our First Nations people during Australia's frontier wars. Now, of course, until now there's been a great deal documented about the tactics of European invaders, but very little research on First Nations counter-resistance. The inner workings, though, are revealed in the book entitled How They Fought. And the author, Ray Kerkhove, joins us now from Brisbane. Ray, thanks for speaking to us. It's an incredibly detailed and researched book, and you've really uncovered a much more sophisticated, strategised and really successful resistance than pretty much everyone understood.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been about 10 years research, and it's meant as a guidebook. It's just a general introduction because that was always my problem when I looked at a lot of this stuff. There didn't seem to be any telling of the story from the other side of the frontier. It always seemed to be still telling the white story.
Give us the details, some of the details that you've uncovered into things like training, ranking, alliances.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of that. I think a really good example, what I found very exciting, was something I call the usurping of pastoralism. And that was this tactic where they would go around and take great chunks of flocks, sometimes entire flocks or herds, and move them from place to place. And the settlers would be sort of chasing after them, and they'd even make their own corrals and put them up on a hill or in a valley or somewhere that was where they could keep them. And often this went on for ages. Sometimes they took the sheep and cattle for hundreds of kilometres. A lot of the frontier wars was about this sort of battle over the pastoral industry. So that was one thing I found. There were a lot of ingenious tactics like that I found. And
interesting to see how quickly the guerrilla fighters adapted the methods of white forces, taking over horses and guns. I found that was much more. I found it was much more than you'll see in the book. There's a map that I did on that because I thought it was just like here and there, but then I found accounts everywhere, the use of steel and glass. It was much quicker than people realised, and it was often much more effective than people realised. And Ray, as you write in the book, this is really sort of turning on its head the understanding of actually the resistance that white forces faced. In the book you say our understanding is it's much more passive, those First Nations warriors, but actually it was much more organised and much stronger and successful in many ways than we've understood.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of victories that have sort of been swept under the carpet because white people don't see them as victories, or they didn't really think of them as that important. But actually, in places, sometimes the tide of settlement was held back for months, sometimes for even decades. There were areas that were vacated and then resettled later.
Kim Beazley, who's the new chair of the Australian War Memorial, has called for a lot more in the War Memorial, including Aboriginal resistance groups there to be on permanent display. I imagine you'd be supportive of that.
Yeah, I saw the article, and what I really like is that he's talking about guerrilla campaigns. And this is something I wanted to show because I think part of the problem that a lot of people, when they talk about placing the frontier wars in terms of the war memorial, is they're thinking, well, is this the same as our military? And I've tried to show there was organisation, there was strategies, and there were these campaigns, and we're starting to document them. It's been a slow process, but I'm not the only one. There's a lot of historians that are doing this sort of work now, and it's actually building up a picture that's a lot more complex, and I think that's about time. But as I said, there's been a lack of an overview of just like how it actually worked, and that's what I tried to present.
Well, it's great scholarship. Congratulations, and thanks for speaking to us about it on News Breakfast this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get more now on these.